Yes, Lucy.
Okay. So, next time last time we were talking a little bit about real electrochemistry when you really want to work in the lab of electrochemistry. So the first course was about thermodynamic and about the basic things, basic knowledge in the when you do your at high school even. Then the second course was more about just electrochemistry in only one electrode, and I explain a little bit more about kinetics. Uh, sorry. We started with Tafel. Do you see my mouse?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, Lucy.
Okay. I
Yes.
don't know if I can
Yes.
put that pointer. Why not? Na 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 pointer. Allez. Pointer laser. Oops. Great. So okay. So can you remember why Tafel was useful?
I think it was because we could deduce. I
Cool.
don't know how to say, like the current on the cathode and the anode.
Yes. This is
Mm.
more good. Good. There is someone. I have noise. Okay.
Uh,
So how do I say? Yes, you have the part in the cathode and in the anode. The full current is more from Wallet-Volmer, I would say. But if you are going only in one direction, or in the anode or in the cathode, you can neglect one of the two terms, and in this case, you have only cathodic current or only anodic current. And TAFL is actually useful because when you have this simplification, you can quite easily obtain the E0. Okay, and the E0, it was the change current that is proportional to the sweep rate, and the sweep rate it's what is giving you how fast or slow is the reaction. So TAFL is just to take a logarithm, but it's going to give you information the how much potential you need to apply to have a given current, and we can compare between catalysts. Okay. Yes. So this is the example. You have seen it already 3 times. In this one, for example, the smaller TAFL slope in this case is giving me the catalyst the most interesting because I need to apply less voltage to increase 10 times the current density. Okay. Then I talked to you a little bit about mass transport limitation that are a phenomena that happens constantly in the lab. So we got the 3 ways of diffusion, convection, and migration. So the diffusion, it was a gradient of concentration. The convection, it was just the mass transport with the flow of moving. And the migration was a gradient of potential. So depending on what is interesting for us, because this is very complex, we try to experimentally find ways to neglect some of the 3 terms. Usually we can neglect migration by adding a very big concentration of supporting electrolyte, that is a solution of a salt, quite concentrated, or we also don't stir. Sometimes, though in this case, we only have diffusion. If sometimes it's interesting to only have convection. For example, in this case, we will stir a lot and we will add supporting electrolyte. But the most traditional is that we try to minimize convection and migration and we stay with diffusion. So the mass transport by diffusion implies that there is a limitation, that you cannot go to the infinite current, because at some point the ions that need to go from the solution, but if they advance by diffusion, at some point they are going to reach like a steady state in which they cannot go faster. And so we will have a limited current value. And this is called the diffusion current, the limiting diffusion current. Yeah, this we already saw. This like a limited diffusion current, we have like the traditional current by diffusion that is here, and we reach the limit when the concentration at the surface of the electrode reach 0. So here, at the beginning of the experiment, we only have oxidized species and it's constant before applying a potential. And then when we apply a potential, we start reducing, so the concentration of the oxidized start decreasing until it reaches 0 in the surface of the electrode. In this case, this simplifies even more, and we have this very small equation that we use a lot, that is the limiting current by diffusion. Okay, so all of this we saw. Then I show you what is the glassware that we use in the lab for electrochemistry. So we got 3 main electrodes that were the counter, the working, and the reference. Can someone remind me the counter electrode, what is its purpose? Or the auxiliary electrode? La, 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 la. Just to not feel alone. Counter electrode, please, someone.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
I was asking the counter electrode. What is the function of this counter electrode?
To close the circuits.
To?
To close the circuits.
Oh shit, I didn't understand well. You see?
To close the circuits.
To close the circuit. Okay, to close the circuit, yes. Sorry, I'm going to increase the volume because I think I'm a little bit deaf. Okay. Now I should hear you much better.
And it's inert, so...
Yes, now I hear you much better. And it's inert, so...
She can't react with electrolytes, so the reaction will be only in the working cathode.
No.
Madam?
Sorry? Yes?
I think it's as Annie said, it closes or it completes
This was
the
true.
electrical circuit, okay,
Hmm.
and by allowing the current to flow between itself and the working electrode.
Exactly. So, Anis was right. It closed the electrode. It closed the circuit, sorry. You also imagine it allows the current to pass here, but Anis said that this is inert. Is true. We use an electrode that is inert, but this does not mean that there is no reaction. I mean, if there is no reaction at the counter electrode, then there is no current. So what it's inert means that we try to use a metal that does not corrode. So we want a metal that conduce very well, but so it's inert. But if in the working electrode there is a reduction, for example, if it's the cathode, in the counter electrode should be an oxidation because so there is a reaction. If not, there is no current. Okay. Okay, and then the reference, it's used to control the potential in the working electrode. Okay, and here you have the potential stats that it was my colleague was saying that is not working properly. Okay. Good. So this is the same that we have said. Current flows between the working and the counter, and the voltage between its measure with respect to the reference. Okay. Then we also saw that the reference electrode, but there are several commercial reference electrodes, and each person in the lab can have several or only one. So for all the scientists to be able to report this value and compare, but we need like a reference for everybody. So we use the standard hydrogen electrode that by convenience it is at 0. So if in my lab I have silver chloride electrode reference and another person has calomel, but we can compare if the two give the values with respect to a standard hydrogen electrode. So it's useful. The only thing with respect to the standard hydrogen electrode is that its potential, it varies with the pH. And so to have a reference, even more referential, we use the reversible hydrogen electrode. Okay, so there is an equation to put potential that you are measuring with respect to this electrode. And normally this is the one that we give in all the publications. And this one is independent of the pH. If I present this, that is with respect to AgCl, another person that wants to do the same experiment need to know the pH. If I present it here, another person does not need to use the pH. Okay. Okay, so then I talk a little bit about the two more important techniques that we use in the lab. That is the chronoamperometry and the cyclic voltammetry. In the chronoamperometry, we just we start from the equilibrium and we apply a jump. We apply a potential constant. Voila, that's all. And the signal is like that because initially we have a lot of current because we have a lot of reactive in the electrode surface, and then as diffusion start working and we start to have less species that arrive by diffusion, so reach a limit, So it decreases, the current decreases with time by diffusion. And if we wait too much, or if we apply a lot of potential, eventually it will go to zero. So this is the law of Cottrell. This 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 kind of current time response, when we apply a constant potential, it's represented by this. So by applying this experimental technique, but we can obtain either the diffusion coefficient or either the concentration of an species I want to measure. Then I talk to you a little bit about capacitance, meaning that we always have capacitance before electron transfer and before we start to have the diffusion and not diffusion. At the very first moment that I apply a potential, there is the double layer that forms, electrical double layer. So we have a small capacity, we are mobilizing charge, but this charge is just to form the double layer, not to it does not participate in the oxidation reduction. So the very first current that I measure is not the current related with my oxidation or reduction. If I want to obtain the diffusion coefficient, for example, I don't take the first part. I take the middle part, because it's the part in which we are sure that we are having only diffusion, and we can use this equation. Okay. This is the same. Then we saw a little bit of cyclic voltammetry. In this case, what we use is not constant. Here we are doing a potential sweep. We go first to oxidation and then to reduction, or the opposite, depends. And so we have this kind of signal. And from this kind of signal, we can obtain thermodynamic parameters and kinetic parameters, and also the diffusion coefficient for the peak current values or the potential values. This, I didn't say anything about this. This is just the evolution of the concentration profile, of the concentration with the distance to the electrode at several points. I think, well, if you want to take a look and you have some questions, you can ask me. But it's like when you apply one potential, when you apply this potential, you are starting. So when you are starting, you have, if you start only having reduced species, but you have a lot of reduced, and then you still has not produced nothing oxidized. And then when you start applying potential, but the concentration are changing. But I'm not going to talk a lot about this. Okay, this is simple. This is what we saw. These are the expression for the peak coordinates for a system that is reversible. If you remember, reversible is a system that is fast. So K0, the kinetic constant, is big. 1 is already big. So infinity is like exaggerated. So from the peak, here you have the peak, the value, the equation for the peaks, the anodic and the cathodic. And from there, you can obtain quite easily, for an unknown solution, the concentration or the diffusion coefficient. And from the position of the peak, you can obtain the standard transfer potential, also very easily. So this technique is really very useful because it allows to obtain a lot of parameters just in 1 or 2 minutes. And it also allows, if the shape is not the same, we can have a lot of information if the reaction is reversible, if there is, for example, a chemical reaction before. So here we saw a small example. So if you want to do it at home, you can do it because I put the solution. Yes, the capacitive current in this kind of cyclic voltammogram, when you have a system that is porous or something that has really behaves a little bit like a capacitor, or the capacitive current here. Here it's not like that. Here what we have is like a distortion like that. So instead of having a thin peak, we have this kind of potato. So if we have something like that, this is related with the capacitive current. Normally, the thicker this is, the more porous is our surface, because the more porous, the more current to do the double layer. For example. Okay. Voila. From here, you depends on the signal. You can see if it's reversible or not reversible. When yes, when it's reversible, you have the two peaks, not one in top of the other, but almost. And when it's becoming slower, but you have the peaks that get separated. The same that the response in Baller-Volmer. This is the same. And here I put you just an example. I show you how we can, if we have several electron transfers, but I can see that this one, for example, is very reversible, and this one is not so reversible. So I know that we have that this species, the 1-hydroxy-3-methoxycarbonyl 2 blah 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 blah, has two electron transfer, one slow, one fast. This is just because when you have this kind of, when you do a cyclic voltammogram and you have this really one peak in top of the other, you are having adsorption phenomena. Okay, adsorption phenomena. It's in French? Yes, it's in French. Sorry. Here you are not having diffusion, you are having adsorption. Voila, I'm not going to talk more about it, but this shape is characteristic from diffusion in cyclic voltammetry. When I see this, I know that my species is getting attached to the surface of the electrode. So the signal becomes like that. Okay. And yes, this is also an example how the cyclic voltammetry changes as a function of if there is a chemical or a chemical reaction before or after. So it's quite useful to study or to complete another kind of techniques to study reaction mechanisms. Okay. So are you still there?
Yes.
Yes, yes, you are listening.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Hi. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about electrocatalysis. So, catalysis, by electrocatalysis is electrochemistry, but applied to reaction of interest normally related to energy conversion now, but now it's really in fashion. So when we are in the lab, we are going to apply electrochemical techniques, but then the data or the parameters that we are searching for a good catalyst is the activity. So when I go to the lab and I have my powder and I put it on the electrode, to do the CO2 reduction, I want it to be active, but I want it to be stable because it can be very active and then decompose, so it's not a good catalyst. I want it to be active. When I say active, I mean I want it to produce a lot of current. I want to be stable and I want it to be selective because there is a lot of competition between the reactions. So if there is very active, but it's producing a product that I don't care about, but then again, it's not a good catalyst. So we need a catalyst to be active, stable, and selective. And this is not very easy, depending on the reaction that you want, that you target. So how do we, some descriptors of the activity? But normally the activity is related to the current density. When we talk about the activity, when we say this catalyst is very active, means that it produces a lot of current density at a low overpotential. Important. I mean, it's active, but it's not only that it's active. If I apply 5 volts, that is huge. I want to apply the lower potential possible and have a lot of current. So how do we measure the activity? But we measure the activity. A descriptor is the change current density, one of them. Another that we have talked a lot about is the Tafel slope. Then, in general, could be the current density. So the change current density is a particular value. The current density is in general at a given potential, how much current I am producing. I'm going to show you an example. And then the overpotential, that is how much far from the equilibrium value I need to apply. Okay, so activity related with current and potential. So here, just by curiosity, when we report current, we don't usually use just current, like in amperes. We use current density. So when we use current density, there are several ways, and the ways more precise are the most complicated. Normally, we are going to use, when we have like a plate, a metal plate, I'm going to give the current density dividing the current by the geometrical area of the electrode. Okay, this is okay. But if I do not have a polished metal, that I have nanoparticles, or I have a nanostructure, or I have nanoporos, here, for example, this is a catalyst, and this is far from being like polished. So in this case, it's much better not to give it by the geometrical area, but to give it by the surface area. That for this, but you need to know the porosity. For example, here you see I have 30 for this kind of iridium molybdenum oxide. I have 30 square meters per gram. It's really a huge surface area. And then, so this is okay, geometrical area, when you have flat things. When you want to be more precise, surface area. But if you really be super precise, it's better to use the electrochemically active surface, because from all these, not all the surface is active. There are always some points that are less active. And this we calculated by applying electrochemical techniques, but sometimes it's not easy. Okay, so this was just curiosity. So here I put just an example. that I found from an article that used silver copper bimetallic electrocatalyst for biomass derived compounds. Okay, so they want to reduce this guy to this one. And for that, they are trying several catalysts. Here, here is copper foam, copper dendrites, and in these copper dendrites, they have, I think they have electrodeposited copper and silver. Okay, so here you can see the cyclic voltammetric responses without just of the surface, without the surface with the supporting electrolyte, but without the species that we want to oxidize or reduce. And then here you see the response of the same surfaces when we have added this thing, this guy. So you see that from the blank, that this is called the blank, from the blank to the addition of the how do you say, HMF, we have a lot of increase on current density. So this increase like very sharp is typical of a good catalyst. So here we have a catalytic mechanism. We have something flat, and then we add the species that we want to catalyze, and boom, we have a peak. Okay. So just if I want to know which of these four is more efficient in terms of activity, either copper foam, silver copper, foam, I don't know the difference. Electrodeposit foam, well, between this and this, I guess they use two different techniques. I think here is electrodeposition and here, I don't know, but they put silver copper by two different ways. So, according to what I just said, I want to have the highest current density and the lowest overpotential. So from this one, but the best in terms of current density, I mean, which is the one that gives me the highest peak, but this one. So silver copper by electrodeposition is the most efficient in terms of current density, but in terms of overpotential, it's also the more efficient because it's the one that I have to apply the less potential. For this one is more difficult. So for example, this one is less efficient. It's less efficient in terms of overpotential and also in terms of current density. So this is the best in overpotential and current density. Okay. Ah. Okay, so I want to ask you something before. Okay, now, question. If I show you this one, okay, this is another reaction. In this case, we are using copper rhodium to reduce nitrates to this one. So I have this kind of responses with different compositions. Here they are changing the bimetallic composition. So, question for you. Which is the best catalyst here among all of these? Which composition? Just to see if you are awake. La, 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 la. You want me to repeat it?
Yes, maybe. Please.
Okay, so I have a reaction that is taking place on an electrode, okay? And this electrode in this kind of work, it's uh, it's carbon in which we have put copper rhodium, so a bimetallic copper rhodium. So this work is about knowing what is the best composition to reduce nitrites. So they put copper 0, rhodium 100 is this one. Then they change copper 32, rhodium 68, that is this one. Copper 48, rhodium 52, that is this one. So they are different electrodes, and I want to know which is the best electrode in terms of activity according to what I just said. So which of these composition gives me the best response?
Madam, is it the second one?
The second one. Can you say the composition? Because
30 to 68.
this one?
Yes,
Why you think is this one?
because we have to balance between the two characteristics we talked about.
Ah, I see. Okay, okay, okay. I see, I see. Uh, but you can say, yeah, you can say something like that. This, it's real that I didn't think like that. But you can say that yes, if you want to balance between the two, you can say that, yes. Me, I would say, in terms of current density, the 4852 is by far the one that provides the best current density. So for me, this is the more active. But in terms of overpotential, if I just look to the overpotential, pure rhodium is better. But for sure, this is not the best catalyst because the current is very small. So if you want to balance the two, you can say so. You can take this one, yes. I like the answer. Okay, so thank you. So now I'm coming back because I was talking about the activity. Okay, good. And then there is another way of measuring the activity that you see a lot. Because here I'm just screening for catalyst, for example. Here I have 4 catalysts. But sometimes you have plenty of catalysts, plenty of composition, and you are studying only one reaction. And so in this case, this kind of volcano plots, this kind of thing, is quite useful and quite used in electrocatalysis. Okay, so let's say the traditional volcano plot, normally it's going to represent a given property that normally is the catalytic activity and the change current, but okay, the activity, and is going to represent it with respect to the binding energy. Okay, why? Because normally, when you are doing electrocatalysis, normally you are going to have adsorption on the surface. For example, here I'm talking about the hydrogen evolution, okay? This is the simplest, the mechanism of hydrogen evolution. So you have your proton needs to go to the electrode and take an electron first, is here. So you have your, well, the plus is not in the proper place, but okay. So I have my proton that is going to arrive. We consider that this is the electrode surface. It's going to arrive, it's going to get attached, taking an electron. So this is adsorption. And then in a second step, it's going to react with another proton that comes, take another electron, and then detach from the surface. And normally this happens in hydrogen evolution, in CO2 reduction also. At some point, the CO2 needs to get attached normally, not always, but normally to the surface. So in this case, quite useful way to study the which is the best catalyst in terms of activity will be to present the current activity versus the binding energy. Because if the binding energy is very small, the proton is not going to attach. So if it's not going to attach, the reaction cannot proceed. But if the binding energy is very strong, then the first step of the reaction will take place, but not the second, because then it cannot detach. So it's a way to know the peak. I wrote it here. The peak of the volcano is going to give me the best catalyst, the optimal, the one that binds the hydrogen or the CO2 or the species that reacts optimally, not weak enough for the reaction to not take place, not strong enough for the electrode surface to get poisoned. Okay, so these kind of plots were invented by Paul Sabatier for the hydrogen. So this is like the rigorous, but then you can do a lot of modification. For example, this is another kind of volcano plot. It's not so stylish, but it's also useful. So this I just put you for you to see an example. So here is an experimental volcano plot that we did for the CO2 reduction. Okay, so we wanted to know again. We were doing alloys, copper, palladium, and we wanted to know which composition will be the best. And do you have an idea why in catalysis or in electrocatalysis we talk a lot about alloys? I mean, why not using only palladium or not only copper? Why I want to do bimetallics? Do you have an idea? I mean, what do you think? Why we are so obsessed with doing bimetallics?
Depends on what we need to moderate different parameters.
Let's say yes. Mm-hmm.
To get better properties because
Yes,
the raw material are not having good properties. So when we mix different compound, you can have better properties.
exactly. Well, it depends.
Mm.
Actually, but yes, but this is this is essentially is this in the case of CO2, copper is super important. Copper is the only metal. If I mean, if we want what we want is to obtain to convert CO2 like in methane or in high energy density products that we can use as fuels. So copper is the only one that can do this, but it's not good enough. Let's say because we need to apply a lot of our potential. So palladium is not so good to do hydrocarbon and alcohols. So what I want, but it can help the absorption, the binding energy that I just talked, the binding energy of for CO2 for copper and palladium is not the same. The palladium is a little bit better. So if we put some palladium in the copper, we increase the performance. So this is why we want so badly to have bimetallics. And also depend also there is if you want to have specific mechanisms, then the atomic configuration of a bimetallic, maybe it's going to help. If you have, depends if you have like the metal and the copper phases are together or are mixed or are separated, this is going to change the mechanism. There are a lot of possible mechanisms. So, well, but essentially for the volcano plots, here we synthesize bimetallics, several of them, and then, as we always do, we do cyclic and with pure palladium, with pure copper, and then with the bimetallics. So what we saw here, for example, is that the 1585 seems to be the best. So to put this more clearly, but we take the like in three, yeah, because depending on the potential region, you are going to have different products. Also, if you start from CO2 and you apply very small potential, maybe you are going to have formic acid. If then you force a little bit, you can have carbon monoxide. And if you force much more, then you can go to things that are more interesting. This is also, we need to force to arrive to the product that we want. So it's for this that we are really looking for catalysts that are good, because we don't want to force the potential. And in any case, if I do a volcano plot with respect to the atomic composition of palladium, I take the current at 3 different potential regions, and then I see that actually is the 85% palladium, which is the best in terms of catalytic activity. Okay, so it's not so stylish as this one. And here I'm not presenting the binding energy, but I am presenting the atomic composition, and it's also valid. It's quite useful. Okay, so this is with respect to the activity. Yes. Copper 15, palladium 85, the highest current density independently of the potential. Good. And this, okay, is the same, is what I just showed you, but this is not for CO2 reduction. Here is for nitrate reduction. Either to N2, either to ammonia. Do you know why it's interesting to reduce the nitrates? Why it's also an important reaction for people working in electrocatalysis? Do you have an idea why we want to remove nitrates? If you don't know, I will tell you, but just tell me that you don't know. Like that.
I don't know.
Thank you. Okay, so nitrates are very present in wastewater, okay? In wastewater. So they are a contaminant that is coming from wastewater. I already said. And there is a phenomena called eutrophización. You know, when the water, it's coming from the I'm looking for the word. Shit. The compost. How do you say compost? The things that you put in the plants to grow. Nobody
Engrais?
knows? Voila. How do you say engrais in English?
Ah, ça, je sais pas.
Shit. I'm going to. How do you say engrais? Ayadou, tu sais comment on dit engrais en anglais?
I think it's fertilizer.
Fertilizer. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so yes. So this guy, it's one of the main component of the fertilizer that we use for the extensive culture of the crops. And so the thing is that there are a lot of infiltration of this one, then in the water and in the wastewater. And then you will have a phenomena that it's a lot of when you have an explosion of plants growing. So you have so much food that at certain point your plants start lacking oxygen and start dying. There is this is a quite well-known phenomenon in climate change. I'm looking for the name. Eutrofización. Eutrofización. I'm sure you have studied this at high school. Eutrofización. Aguas. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to show you a picture. Eutrofización. What? Sorry, but I am Spanish, eh? But you see, this kind of thing, you have this when you have a lot of fertilizer in the water. At the end, you have this. So, oh, it's Spanish. Voila. So I don't know the name if in English, but I guess will be also eutro whatever. In Spanish, it's eutrofización. But in any case, this is one of the main concerns also in the wastewater and in water. So our colleagues some of the colleagues in my group are working in destroying the nitrates before or at the moment that they arrive to avoid this. And there are a lot of scientists in electrocatalysis working on that. Voila. So for this, you can use rhodium copper. It's very expensive, I agree. And we need to try to find some catalysts that are not so expensive. But like that, you destroy this one in nitrogen. That nitrogen, this is not a problem at all. It's not problematic. Or you can also do ammonia. And this one is a little bit more problematic, but you can take it and use it in fuel cells. So it's not so bad. Okay. Okay, so I come back. So activity, we finish activity. Okay, so activity, current density, and our potential, and volcano plots. Then selectivity. Why? What do you think is selectivity? The selectivity of a catalyst. Hello?
Yes, we are here.
Yes, but when we are talking about
Yes, yes.
selectivity, what in general, what is the selectivity of a reaction? You don't know? Okay, if you don't know. So, the selectivity of a catalyst is that my catalyst can have a lot of, can produce a lot of current, but I don't care if I do not have the product that I want. For example, I always talk about CO2 because it's the one that I work and but also there is a big problem of selectivity because CO2 can get reduced to a lot of different products. So in this case, for example, and I wanted CH4 because it's the one that has the highest current density, so it can be used as fuel. But there are already things working with CH4, with methane. But you see, I have, depending on the potential, I have. Here, for example, if I apply only minus 0.4 volts, I have a lot of hydrogen and carbon monoxide. And it changes with the potential, the product distribution changes. So it's only in this potential in which I can say I have a kind of selectivity for methane. But I cannot say that my catalyst was so selective. So the selectivity is the capacity of your catalyst to produce a given product selectively. Normally, we use to quantify the selectivity, we use the Faraday efficiency that we were talking a little bit the last day. So Faraday efficiency, when I do my experiment, for example, this is my electrochemical cell. And then I use depend on the product that you want to do, and depend on the reaction. That for me, I use gas chromatograph to analyze the gases, and I use NMR and NMR, yes, to study the liquids that I obtain in my reaction. So in my cell, I inject CO2, and then I produce some gases and some liquids. So the gases I'm going to analyze by GC, and the liquids by this one. And so from my GC analysis, for example, I'm going to know how much product I obtain. So the quantity of product that I really obtain, let's say, divided by the maximum quantity of possible products that I could have obtained, it's going to give me the Faraday efficiency. One example here. Let's do, well, I will show you one example. And maybe it's, okay, so I have a cell and I do a chronamperometry that you already know. Now the chronamperometry is to apply a constant potential. So I apply minus 1.5 volts versus an AgAgCl, that is a reference electrode. This I don't care, for a given time. And I do it in silver metal, just with silver. My working electrode in one case is silver, and in the other case is copper. And this is the current that I obtain. So I obtain more current with copper than with silver. So if I show you this, and I say which is best between copper and silver to do my reaction. If you see this and you see the current produced by copper and silver, which metal do you think is the best? You have to guess. Do you need me to re-explain? I re-explain, there is no problem, but you need to tell me something. I lost you.
It's silver, I guess.
Hey, why do you think silver is better?
It gives us this plateau.
It's for the plateau. Okay, so according to what we said, in terms of activity, more activity means more current.
Yes.
And in this case, copper, oh, shit. Oh, In this case, copper is providing me more current than silver. So why do you think silver is better? Because silver is giving me less current. Eh? Actually, you're right. Silver is better. But I want to tell you, I want you to tell me that it's not. Because, okay, so according to, if we only look to the current density, I am having, for example, at 600 seconds, I am having, I don't know, 2.5 milliampere per square centimeter if I use a copper, and maybe zero point 0.5 if I use silver. So in terms of activity, copper is better. But then there is the selectivity. And now you are going to see that in terms of selectivity, silver is a little bit better. So to really know which is more selective, by going to, during the experiment, I take some notes and then I apply these calculations. So for silver, I see that after 15 minutes of electrolysis, I pass a charge of 0.98 coulombs. And I got a current of -1. So then if I analyze my gases product on the GC at these 15 minutes, I see that I have this quantity, 137 minus 6 moles the hydrogen and 7 minus 7 moles the CO. If I lose you, you tell me and I repeat because we are almost finishing already. Okay, so okay, so I do the same measurements for copper. I'm going to compare at the same time. So for copper, at the 15 minutes, I pass 3.45 coulombs, so I pass much more charge, so much more product, okay? And I was at a current of -2.8, okay? And so I see that I produce much more hydrogen, 1.19, and I see that I produce 3.2, much less CO. So even if I have much more charge, the charge went mainly to hydrogen and not to the product that I want. And my product that I want is product related with CO2 reduction, so it's CO. So if I take the moles that I produce and I convert this mole by this equation that you already know in charge, I can compare the experimental charge in my experiment with the total charge. And so I can see, here I only put 15, I can see that silver at 15 minutes produces hydrogen, okay, but produces some quantity, at least 10% of Faraday efficiency, 10% of the charge is going to CO. And in the case of copper, nothing is going to CO. So copper has higher activity, but not for the reaction that I want. So it's not selective. So it's not a good cut. You follow more or less? I hope so. Okay. So the last important point for the catalyst, I come back. It was activity, selectivity, and stability. We can have an active, a selective catalyst, but if only works for 5 minutes or 1 minute, then it's a show of catalyst. So the stability. We need catalysts that are the more stable possible. And when you work with, for example, nanoparticles, this is especially for copper, but nanoparticles can degrade and catalysts can degrade in a lot of different ways. Here again is for CO2 reduction, but it's happened also with the others, with other reactions. Your catalyst can get poison. Why? Because can be impurities from the reaction, or can be also one of the products that get attached to the surface and does not go. So then your catalyst is poison. Your catalyst can also get detached from the surface. Your catalyst can disintegrate. Your catalyst can reshape, and sometimes this can be good for the selectivity. This is like for Oswald ripening. For me, it's kind of reshaping also. And the fragmentation. So you see an agglomeration. There are a lot of ways for catalysts to degrade. Here I came back to the same article than before, and what we worked just an example with palladium copper. For example, we did we did the chronoamperometry with the different bimetallics that we study, and what we saw is that we have the typical current by diffusion, but at some point the current falls to zero. So when it falls to zero, means that our catalysts get deactivated. It's not working anymore. So with this test, but you can quite easily see that this is the best composition for that actually palladium 72, it was the best in terms of catalyst stability. And this we can relate it again with the absorption energies of copper palladium by the CO2 reduction products. And we also, but we can, you can also do. In this case, we did a volcano for the composition with respect to the time of this critical sharp point in which we consider that the catalyst is destroyed. And then we can also have volcano plots to see what is the best composition in terms of poisoning. Mm. To improve the stability of electrocatalysts, scientists do several things. They can try to adjust the structure, to tune the shape, the size. They can try to engineer the surface. That I think that for me, this surface engineer, yes, when you engineer the surface, but you put protective layers. For example, I don't know if you know the technique atomic layer deposition, but atomic layer deposition can be used to protect nanoparticles. It have very thin layers of protective oxides, for example, and then your nanoparticles will disintegrate less. Material composition control. This is the halogen. Again, this is doping or halogen because some metal get poisoned before than others. So we try to modify the composition to try to reach the optimal binding energy. And then you can also play with the electrolyte because the electrolyte sometimes, the electrolyte is the salt that you put, but sometimes also has an impact on the properties of the electrode or the pH. And I put here an scheme of the different things you can do to optimize. And for me, that's all. I think. Yes. Yes. So I can start photoelectrocatalysis now, but I'm not going to start or no. No. So tell me if you have questions, some question about whatever. And if you don't have question, we stop. Or questions about the
For me, it's okay.
exam. Okay. So I'm going to send you this. I will send it to Eleni.
Yes.
The PDF. And do you want that I send you something else or that's all? This PDF, no?
I think also
We
you can
already
send
have
me
it.
the exercises.
Ah, yes, the last exercises. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So voila. So the exam, my part of the exam normally is quite easy. Maybe I will put some small exercise, the one that we did, but I think you have 30 minutes so I will put theoretical something, some questions, true or false or something like that. And then some exercise. Okay?
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so thank you to you. And if you need something, but you tell me. I'm not far.
Ça marche. Merci.
Okay. Bye bye alors.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bon
Bye.
Have a nice
après-midi.
afternoon. Bye.